knows what the hell they're talking about. They've done it, they've seen it, and they've understood it. Listening to people, that's what we're going to do in the next session. And I think it's a nice cue coming from sheet music and music to discuss the future of listening. What is going to happen with traditional radio? What's going to happen with music when we have music everywhere, when we have the ability to choose content, and when anybody can be a producer? That's what we're going to find out in the next sessions. I want to invite Silla Benke, CEO of Sveriges Radio. Welcome up on stage. And the next speaker, he's been Global Head of Innovation at McCann Erickson. He's also the founder of Tastemaker X. Very welcome up on stage.
Thank you.
Silla, have a seat. Mark Ruxin, founder of Tastemaker X, Silicon Valley veteran. Welcome to Stockholm. Please have a seat. This here is our ancient Greek corner where we gather wise men and women to find out about interesting topics.
You get us to feel extremely old now, but
no, picking up on radio, I can look at radio in many different ways. What will happen when I can choose any song on Spotify and then I can listen to any podcast anywhere? Why do I need radio?
well, you still need radio, and I have figures to you to prove that. I won't have a lot of figures in this session, but I have two. Swedish radio have a daily audience of 5 million people, weekly audience of 7 million people, and we are a population of 9. So that's answer enough, I think. But
I'm one of them.
yeah, I know. Radio is quite vital, alive, and kicking in Sweden. And I think mainly because people like what we do. They like our content. They see us as a trusted guide. And also with Spotify, I mean, we have a channel targeting the audience between 20 and 29. It's called P3. They have a playlist. We have put that playlist on Spotify, and it is now the 8th most downloaded playlist in the world. So of course, that proves that the Swedish young audience, at least, find us to be the curator, the guide to new Swedish music and new music overall. So that is our mission and our task, I think.
And curation is something that is also very close at heart, sort of picking the right kind of music and make it easier to listen to what you want to listen to. Isn't that, tell us what Tastemaker X is.
Sure. I mean, I guess I'll start with curation. I mean, I think as the web becomes filled with more and more content, curation becomes more and more important. I think we used to talk about in the television world 500 channels and nothing to watch. When you apply that to music, you're talking about 50 million songs and nothing to listen to. So, curation becomes even more important. And I think when you think about the future of radio, radio becomes more personal. And tastemakers are the people that typically find bands and then distribute that content. We built a platform where anyone can be a tastemaker, and you don't necessarily need to be a radio DJ to have good taste. What I think you need to do is ground your taste and build an individual audience. And you can take a look at Sean Parker, who was one of the founders of Facebook. He's got one of the biggest playlist followings on the planet. There's something like 2 or 3 million people that listen to his ever-growing playlist. So what we've set up is a platform that's mobile and web, and soon Spotify, that allows people to pick collections of artists. People can go to those collections and just press play. So that person doesn't need to build a specific playlist. All they need to do is curate artists, rank them in an order that they like, and then use the listening service that they use. So it could be
and you
Spotify
call that
or
collections. So I build my own collection, and then people follows my collections.
Exactly. Exactly. Then the flip side of the collection, I think, radio and listening and discovery, there's another element that the social web, I think, brings to music today, which is all the content and information outside of the music. So it's tour dates, it's new releases, it's blog posts, it's news and information associated with the band. And I think bands now, they don't just make music, they make videos on Vine and pictures on Instagram, and they link to blog posts and information that they like. So the flip view of a collection that you build is all the information associated with that list of artists, or even just the social media feed associated with the artist
it's somebody's
themselves.
collection of music they like, followed by people, but it's also the whole ecosystem around the artist.
Yeah, and I think, most people don't go to live music because they don't know the live music that they like is even in their town. So just the queues, and there are companies built just on providing tour date information. If you have a feed that's fully focused on the artist that you like, you're more inclined to be, more active with that artist.
Coming back to radio, I must. When do you think radio is at its best?
Well, radio is at its best when you can't stop listening. And now we have been talking about music, but for me, radio is so much more than music. I mean, we have a lot of really great speech content. And for instance, you can listen to live events at radio. And when you can't stop listening, that's when it's at its best. Take a soccer game, for instance, or a big sports event overall. Or take the personal stories, the stories that we bring back to the audience right now, actually, from Philippines. The stories that hits your heart and hits your brain, but you have to paint your own pictures. Those are the really, really good stories, and we have a lot of them.
I heard that radio became mass market in the US. I don't know if this is true. When Titanic was sinking and everybody wanted to follow the drama and what happened afterwards, and that's sort of like these big stories that kick-started the medium. I think that TV had the same experience when Super Bowl was in color for the first time. Then color TV sort of kicked in mass market. But both TV and radio, they're old medias by now. And I mean, how long has radio been going on in Sweden?
Well, Swedish radio's been around since 1925. We have our 90th jubilee next year or 2 years from now. And of course, I mean, we could sit back and be very happy with our audience figures, be the fat cat and do nothing. But I mean, this little thing is around.
Yeah.
And this is an excellent radio receiver, but you have to work on it to get your audience actually to follow you in this one, because of course the competition is also so much bigger.
But you've been working very much with digital transformation and sort of...
Yeah, we have. I mean, there are two legs in our digital strategy. One is the terrestrial broadcasting. We are not in charge of that. That's a political decision. Maybe we will get it next year. We don't know. But while waiting for that, I mean, we moved into responsive design. We told our staff, forget the desktop. Responsive design is going to have this one into focus, and audio. And that works fine, extremely fine. But you also have to change the mindset and the traditional way of working as journalists. Otherwise, if you're working analog in a digital world, you're definitely going to fail. And social media is here to stay, let's face it. And there have been a lot of traditional journalists saying, well, of course, I mean, social media is not journalism, and let's stay away from it, and we are fine as we are. We have told our staff that, no. We are 1.0 people, traditional journalists. Social media is 2.0. The match made in heaven is 3.0. That means including your audience into what you're doing before you even get started. It's not handing over the microphone, not citizen journalism. I'm talking about using the knowledge, using the experience, using the enthusiasm of your audience already in your creative work before you get started. Because then you can play a vital role within a democratic society. And I will give you all one example. We have an urban radio station called Metropol. And we had a big debate in Sweden about what kind of words are okay to use without being called a racist. And this debate was mainly taking place, to be honest, within the parliament, white middle-aged people, on editorial pages, white middle-aged people. So then this radio station decided, well, let's go out and ask the people. And they are a radio station, but they provided a small video and placed it on YouTube.
Frustration, ilska.
Man vaknar, loggar in på Twitter, på Facebook, kollar mejlet. Boom. Boom! Där är det.
Det känns som att man reser tillbaka i tiden.
Man måste bara vara förberedd på det liksom.
Jag får blackout. Man tänker att en gång är ingen gång. Fast det är ju det. En gång är ju en gång.
Sa de vad jag tror att de faktiskt sa?
På gymmet.
Fikapausen. I skolan.
På ett möte. I krogkön. När man promenerar på trottoaren så hör man någon.
Säg igen. Säg vad du menar.
Du kan få låtsas att du är svensk, men du är ju egentligen inte det.
Neger.
Invandrarjävel.
Svartskalle.
Apa.
Kurdjävel.
Lakritstroll. Negro de mierda.
Och hem till ditt land.
Svarting.
Till slut blir man immun.
Har vi inte kommit längre.
Det här är på allvar.
På riktigt.
Enough is enough.
Det räcker nu.
And together with this video on YouTube, they also created a hashtag on Twitter. And within a couple of days, they got 600 unique stories from people, ordinary people, listeners, an audience telling, this is what happened to me when I was 7 on the beach. For the first time realized that I was black and everybody else was white because someone made a nasty remark. And out of these 600 stories, they made radio programs for an entire week. They also made a big live radio event at Fryshuset here in Stockholm, and they turned the whole debate around. And this is excellent public service. And this is what I mean. I mean, you can't sit back as traditional journalist working the traditional way. You have to start looking into the digital world and use it as an advantage and not see it as a threat.
I want to swing first. I think this is a fantastic example.
It's a good story.
And it's a story also sort of reinventing the way you work in a large corporation or a large organization. You worked a lot with sort of innovation before. What some of the things that you bring with you from that world into your entrepreneurship? What are things that corporations can do to harvest digital innovation or to sort of lead this transformation that Silla's speaking about?
Yeah, I mean, I think big companies with real, kind of financial restrictions have a tough time anticipating the future and then executing in the present. And I think, I live in San Francisco, and to be in Silicon Valley is to understand how things get to scale. And there was an article written a couple weeks ago. There's only been 39 companies since 2003 that have reached the plus $1 billion valuation. So the likelihood of that success is, 0.007. So investors that put money into this ecosystem are really, placing, bets that typically don't come to fruition. And I think part of the reason that they've been able to do that is by attracting the talent that can really disrupt industries. And I think if you work in that part of the world, it's tough to come up with an incentive structure to get the best and the brightest, paying them a salary and having a steady kind of cushy corporate job. And I think, the dream of freedom and the dream of, paradigm-breaking innovation, a lot has to do with, putting it all on the line, looking at the future, and then executing in the present. So if you look at companies like Dropbox and Twitter and Airbnb, those are some of the smartest people in the world working for not very much money, but looking at the future of connectivity, looking at the future of compute time, looking at the future of mobility, and then building, towards human behaviors that are going to, be there when technology catches up. And I think anytime you're in a company that doesn't provide that incentive system, you're going to lose the minds that are really going to be able to see into the future and then execute in the present.
But what then is the new phase of leadership that can sort of lead the transition? What kind of leadership advice could you give? If you, in spite of sort of, you can't offer a garage, you can't offer stock in Dropbox, but you still want to have people that are able to do very curious things.
I mean, I think if you can't compete with, early Facebook or Twitter stock options, you have to compete, with people's passion. And I think, especially in the music tech space, there's only been 5 positive venture-backed liquidity events in the history of the space. Pandora and Grace Note and Last.fm, there's only been a few. So, but continually people create businesses around music, mostly because they care about music, mostly because they're trying to solve problems that aren't being solved for themselves. So things like music discovery, that's a problem that hasn't been solved. I was sitting on a panel at South by Southwest last year, and there was a guy that runs a music data company who was saying, most humans suffer from this condition called taste freeze. And it's this condition where people basically stop pursuing new music right around the time they get out of college. And when you query those people about this condition, 90% of those people are dissatisfied. And that's a real shame. Every day, and increasingly more and more incredible, groundbreaking new music is created, but people don't have a mechanism to process it on a going forward basis. So I think in spaces, especially passion spaces like film and music and television, there will be people that are willing to forgo riches towards that thing that they really care about.
So the future funding model for great content is people do it for free because they like it? Or how is quality content going to be funded?
Well, for me it's quite simple. I'm not in the business to make money. I'm in the business to create trust and to create agenda-setting content that people love. And I'm fortunate enough, I'm living in a country where we still have the license fee. It's good, it's bad. I can be extremely innovative. I can go anywhere to get new money. I have to cater with what I have. So this whole digital development that we do with the same money that we got once for being analog. So of course that's a challenge. But I mean, we have to do our priorities. And we have 5 strict priorities at Swedish Radio. It's foreign coverage. It's having the best network of foreign correspondents. It's being real local through 25 local stations. And it's culture coverage outside of the big cities. It's news and current affairs, especially investigative journalism. And it is putting this one into focus. And the rest we have to skip, basically.
But in this transition, I want to ask both of you, what is the sort of, first of all, I want to have the larger organization mindset that is needed to drive change. And then I would like you to compare that with being an entrepreneur and see what differences you see. What kind of learnings can you share from sort of the mindset or for the organizational challenges? Because I could imagine, not knowing your organization at all, but if somebody comes in and say, we're going to do things really, really differently. You're not a journalist like you used to be. Now you're going to listen to these guys. You're going to work this way. There's going to be a lot of resistance. And I mean, strategy, culture eats strategy for breakfast a lot of the time.
Yeah, but the resistance hasn't been that strong, really. Maybe I'm good at explaining what we have to do. I don't know. No, but people like it. I mean, people are not stupid. I mean, we have very extremely talented people working at Swedish Radio. They see what's going on. And that's, I think, is my task, to make them see what's going on around us, to realize, as I said, social media is here to stay. We have to cope with it. It's not a threat.
So you spend a lot of time of getting them to move into the future mindset.
We do training. We produced a social media handbook, for instance. There is not one in the entire world. We were looking for one. We had to produce one ourselves. How to actually use social media to do it in a successful way. And you can download it from our website. It's in English also, an English version, if you want it. And I think we have to train people. We have to give them time to think and reflect and to discuss, to get them on board. And then you have to have an environment where it's okay to make a mistake. I mean, you have to have an environment where leadership says, well, we take the risk and maybe we're going to fail. But if we don't take the risk, we're going to be left behind. But if you have an environment where sort of it's not okay to make a mistake, then you will never have an innovative and creative environment, and then you can't go forward, I think.
What are some of the mindsets you see, sort of Silicon Valley mindsets, and your own as an entrepreneur?
Well, I'll just start with just an example to the earlier question. You know, how do you create innovation within a big company? Well, I think one of the things that you've started to see is big companies creating what they're calling labs. So bring in young, typically, you know, programming, engineering-minded people to build products and platforms without the risk profile that goes with trying to raise venture money and going without, you know, a salary for long periods of time. The big global dating juggernaut Match.com started a lab. This lab, the first project to come out of this lab was a dating app called Tinder. I don't know if Tinder's made it to Sweden, but certainly all the rage in the States. That was a corporate-funded project where, you know, they gave 10 engineers in teams of 2 the ability to build the next best dating app, and now they have different issues, which is it's so popular that these founding engineers want to be able to spin it out and build a big company out of it. But I think these labs opportunities are great for people that want to kind of hedge, you know, going full bore into entrepreneurship, but also have the stability of working at a big company and the distribution opportunities that come with it. I think, you know, to the second part of the question, I think that people need to be motivated to do the things that they think will help change the world. And, you know, to be in the Valley is to understand that, you know, access to capital in an environment where it's very inexpensive to build a product, and, you know, some combination of luck and connectivity can be the difference between Snapchat and some idea about photos that disappear. You know, people have to, you know, lower their risk tolerance. They have to look at the possibility of doing, you know, just small incremental innovation on top of infrastructures that don't cost very much to get up and running. So, yeah, you know, there's some combination of risk, and then within an organization, the ability to, you know, encourage not necessarily failure, but to know that you're not going to nail the product right out of the chute.
So we are. I get fascinated, so I get a sign from Mats saying that I have to pay attention to time. But let's continue this discussion. Thank you very, very much for contributing, and you'll also be in a workshop later on today where the discussion will continue. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.